When you at home, you have these fake feelings that you control something. We have missiles from Crimea. It's Iskander missile, and it's quite quick. So after air alarm, usually we have 3 minutes or 4, and then you can hear the explosion. So it's actually you don't have time to hide.
Welcome to the podcast Yakty. Yakty means in Ukrainian, how are you? I am your host, Lucia Chirki, a former correspondent reporting from Ukraine, now a book author and a freelancer. This is a podcast with a guest, live from Ukraine. My guest today is Irina Kiparyenko. Irina is a journalist and a film programmer manager at the Ukrainian Institute in Kyiv in Ukraine. Irina is talking to us today from Odessa, the city where we got to know each other in 2018. The focus of today's episode is the work of Irina as a journalist and film programmer and her personal experience during Russia's war against Ukraine. Hi, Irina.
Hello. Nice to hear you and meet you finally again.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Thank you so much for taking your time today. I really appreciate that. I would like to start the podcast with a question. How are you right now in this moment?
It's always difficult to answer this question. And after around 3 years of invasion, I think many people start hate this question because it's generally, if you want to be polite and internationally, you need to say, okay, I'm fine, and how are you? But as we say about yakty in Ukrainian, it's mean really how are you? It's mean how are you doing? How is everything? How you feel yourself today? Or how you spent your night? And if it was some air alarms and something like that. So I prefer to say fine, or I prefer to say stable. Yeah, it's short and it's something between I'm fine, how are you? And between a bit deeper explanation, really how I am these days. So I'm in Odessa. We still have power cuts. It's back after the huge power cuts in July, I guess, when it was around 40 degrees and you cannot use your air condition. There was a really interesting situation how to create some new things that you can use as a cooler for yourself. Now weather is not so hot, but there's power cuts back. But this time I'm like more prepared, so I already can manage my working schedule, life schedule, how to live with it. So can you realize that the answer is really long? And we can talk about like hours and hours, and it won't be one clear answer.
You just said that people hate this question. Have you heard that from other people in Ukraine, that they don't like to answer the question, how are you? Or how do you know that people hate this question, how are you?
Yes, of course. I heard it from my friends. At the beginning of invasion, I got so many questions from my foreign colleagues and friends. They called me, they wrote to me and asked how I am, how we are. And at the beginning, it was quite difficult to explain everything. But after we realized that we need to find these words to explain our foreign friends and colleagues, we need to find these words, we need to find some links how better explain our situation. So we cannot hide, we cannot say just fine, because actually it's not fine. You cannot be fine in this crazy war state reality. But I spoke with my friends in like Ukrainians that they I cannot say hate, but they avoid this question because it's always will follow with a really long conversation about if you stay or you move abroad, if you or you want to join the army, or about your friends who joined the army. So it's where usually it's very deep and long conversation after this question. So it's better to be more direct if you want to know something. As example, are you staying or are you leaving? Or because Yakti, it's already as a symbol, of course, of support, but also it's a starting point for a long, deep conversation. And if you're not ready for it, it's better do not ask it, because not so many people ready for this conversation, or not so many people want to share this experience and everything that they have in their minds and in their life.
You are talking to us from Odessa. How safe do you feel in the city in these days?
It's interesting, but I feel safer in Odessa but I feel not so safe when I'm abroad or somewhere else. Because when you're at home, you have these fake feelings that you control something, that you can hide, that you can ask your mom and relatives, go to the shelter. It's a really fake feeling. And of course, if you check the news or you follow the news of the last months, we have missiles from Crimea. It's Iskander missile, and it's quite quick. So after air alarm, usually we have 3 minutes or 4, and then you can hear the explosion. So it's actually you don't have time to hide. So in this case, what is the plan? To be nervous, or just to live with this reality, try to live and realize, okay, we have safety rules, you need to follow the rules, but if you have 3 minutes, sometimes it's impossible. There is no any rules that can help you if you don't have time to hide, actually. So in general, it's not so safe, of course, but this summer tourists back to the city, and it's looks like optimistic. They are not afraid, or maybe they're afraid, but they don't show it. They walk on the streets. They they spent some time near the sea, and of course, to be near the seaside, it's more dangerous than you somewhere in the city center or in the sleepy area. The streets are crowded, so it looks like optimistic. But in another hand, we still have these attacks from Crimea mostly every day.
You yourself, you have a family relation to Crimea. Your roots are originally from Crimea.
I was born there, but when I went to the first class of school, we moved to Odessa. It was many, many years ago, 1996 or 7, something like that, in 90s. We moved before the temporary occupation. And every time when I speak about this topic, I think, okay, my parents decide for me this fate, but what can be if not? And I'll stay and rise in that place. And then 2014 come, and what can be my decision in that case? So I think it's good that we moved before.
How is it for you that you were born in a place that now, from there where you were born, missiles are getting shot towards the city you are now living in? How is that for you personally?
It's quite strange situation, and actually it's also strange that they use places like military bases where my father served the army in Soviet time. So when I read in the news and I can read these titles of the places, of the villages, I remember these titles from my childhood when my father described all the time that he served the army, how it was, how they deal with the aircrafts, with the military aircrafts. And I remember that names of the aircraft, they call it Su-27 or 25, and now they use these planes to attack us. It feels like a big utopia, something that you cannot explain, that it looks like that something happened with reality, with time, with history, and everything mixed in one place, in one piece of time. Yeah, but anyway, we still wait in the occupation. I still hope that I can back to Crimea. All the time when somebody asks me, okay, maybe you're gathering money for something, I say, okay, I want to buy a house in Crimea. And when I've been retired, I want to spend some time there. And it's mean that, okay, you still have time. I'm 35, so we still have some time for Ukrainian army to deoccupy Crimea. So yeah, because I'm gathering money, I want to invest in the house or apartments. With the nice sea view. Yeah, it's funny to speak about it, but of course, if we try to imagine this reality, it will be very difficult to bring it back
under control of the Ukrainian army.
Yeah.
You mean
of course,
difficult for that? When we first met in 2018, you were working for the public broadcasting company of Ukraine, Suspilne Ukraine. When you think back of your work before the full-scale invasion as a journalist, your work as a journalist, what would you say? What is the biggest difference compared to your work today during Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine?
Everything changed. We cannot imagine before when we took some part in the trainings of the safety of the medical aid. We cannot imagine that it can happen in so massive, in every city, mostly in every big city. It was impossible to imagine, but at the beginning of 2022, I remember that everyone started speaking about this backpack that you need to already have, like a safety backpack. And it was everywhere, this list with the things that you need to have in your backpack. And situations already looks like a bit nervous. And then I got like around 10-15 proposals every day from the foreign journalists who already came to Kyiv because they are looking for someone to work. And I remember, okay, I think it doesn't mean if they're already here, it means that they're waiting for something. And we checked the bomb shelters. We visited trainings of the locals who train some military things in the Kyiv area and in the central part of Ukraine. But when it happened, it was like a moment of course, it was really scary, and you don't know what to do. I lost my backpack, so I took only some. I took my laptop to the shelter, some pills, and that's all. No food, no clothes, no water. Now I try to understand how it's possible. You prepare for it like few months, and then you're stuck in in the shelter without food, water, and So it's interesting because you try to prepare for this, but it's impossible to prepare for so massive attacks, for so crazy situation, for so massive movement of people. It was impossible to take any trains from Kyiv. We spent like 6 or 7 hours on the train station. Because on that time, at night on 24th of February, I've been in Kyiv, and then I spent some time in the central part of Ukraine and back to Odessa after these holidays, big holidays in May, in the beginning of May, because I understood that they will attack. They try to attack the city on the 2nd of May, 9th of May, because they usually use these historical dates to try to show their power on these days. And then I back to Odessa. The question was how the journalism changed, how the work changed.
Yeah, how your work changed, compared during a time when, Russia was already occupying parts of Ukraine, but like it was not a full-scale invasion. So what is like for you as a journalist, what is like the biggest change, when you compare your work today to the work you were doing before February 2022?
It's quite difficult to answer, but we start feeling that this moment that's happening now, it's only one, like the last chance. We try to do everything that at like the last thing that you're doing. So we start feeling that we don't have enough time for it. So if you want to do something, if you want to write about something or speak with someone, you need to do it now, because it can happen that tomorrow you won't have tomorrow for something else. So we try to live in this moment. We can say this in general about life, about relations, about emotions. But as for me, my job as a journalist, as a person who involved in the documentary film industry. So when I had some idea to speak with someone or to write or to pitch some story, I try to do it like not immediately, but today or tomorrow. Not just to maybe in the end of the year or maybe in the next year. So I try to do it as quick as possible, because on the other hand, we compare ourselves with soldiers, and you all the time feel that you're doing not enough. So if somebody say to you, okay, it's maybe difficult to spend some times near the front line, or when you visit the places after attacks, it can be difficult to write additional story or to film something. You all the time have this unhealthy feeling that you cannot say no. You cannot say that you are tired. You cannot say that you are do not have enough power to do something, because all the time you have this in mind. You have your friends who is on the front line, and they spend there, some of them around like from the beginning. So soon it will be around 3 years. And you cannot say no in this case. So it's completely unhealthy thing. But if you have this really strong symbol of heroism and power, Ukrainian army. So you try to be as active as possible in your volunteering, in any small things that you can provide to the country, to your friends, to your close people. Maybe it sounds a bit strange or a bit romantic, but this is how it is.
So if I understood you correctly, just to summarize shortly what you said, so it became basically not possible to make any plans for your future. So you try to do everything as soon as possible, because you don't know what's going to be like in 2 days or in 3 days. And at the same time, you feel like constantly, if I understood you correctly, like any guilt, right? That other people are suffering and giving their lives. And you, in the meantime, are a civilian person, and there is so much you can do as a civilian person. Did I summarize correctly what you wanted to say?
Yeah, we always have this feeling that we're doing not enough. So, and nobody knows what enough. Of course, there is an option for everyone. Women also can join the army, but it's always the feeling that you're doing not enough. Yeah, and this is with so many people live now. I speak about my friends and people with whom I speak about these unpleasant things sometimes.
What would you say? You mentioned that you are now 35 years old. What would you say, like as a woman, working as a journalist in Ukraine? Would you say that it changed over time? Would you say like that women working as a journalist were, when you started working or a few years ago, were treated differently, or did you never ever came across, any imbalance towards women working in the field?
I can say that to work as a woman in journalism in Ukraine, it's always a struggle. It's always a journey, especially if you try to work with military topics or if you want to spend some time with the army. As example, in 2018 or 19, I planned to write a piece about Ukrainian Navy, and I asked them to spend some time on the Navy ship. And I wrote like so many letters. I made so many calls. I explained them it's important to spend some time, like day or two, because it was a group of the sailors who moved from Crimea, and they lived on these military ships because it was no any apartments for them. So they live on that ships at winter, summer, and it was quite difficult to them. And my idea was to have this experience, to speak with them. But in the end, they say, yeah, of course, but you can spend on this ship only 2 hours, no more. And then I say, yeah, of course, we can speak with the sailors. We gonna spend these 2 hours because it was only one option for us. But then I realized that there is still this thing that there is no place for women on the military ships because it was my idea. It was no any words from them about it, but this is how I feel. So now, of course, it's impossible to imagine this situation. It was a 2017, I guess, something like that. Now it's more everything more strict, of course, but if you want to do some material, it's only a question of many letters and level of access. And of course, during the martial law, the government have the possibility to close some information. They can say, okay, we cannot give you access to this place or another place. It's understandable, but for now, it's everything that I faced. It looks like that the press officers, persons from the local government, it's from my experience, they try to help as they can, or they try to explain why they cannot help you with some information or access.
So people on the ship, they did not tell you that there was no space for women on the ship. It's just like your assumption, right? They were not telling you why exactly you were only able to spend there 2 hours and not 2 days as you have planned. Did I get that right?
Yeah, exactly. But I got this feeling because it was a really long history of the military ships, of the Navy.
I'm curious to ask, Irina, when I met you, you made a really strong impression on me as a very forward-thinking journalist in a surrounding that is not very easy, especially, considering the position you had at the time at Suspilne Ukraine. Would you say, like, nowadays there are more women in different positions at Suspilne Ukraine, at different media companies in Ukraine? Would you say that has changed over time?
Yeah, in that time I work as a producer at Odessa branch of the Ukrainian public broadcasting company. And at some positions, yes, I think journalism mostly all the time in my region, in my country, have the women face because there is less money. It's obvious reason. But now there is another thing that so many men joined the army, and it's meant I have like a few days ago I got the news that some guy that we worked together on Suspilne in Odessa, he joined the army. And then another guy, he joined the army before and he lost in action. Now there is no enough men who able to work in the journalism, so it's like the situation became worse if we're speaking about gender equality. If we want to have women and men's voices in journalism. And then another guy, he joined the army before and he lost in action. So now there is no enough men who able to work in the journalism, so it's like the situation became worse if we're speaking about gender equality. If we want to have women and men's voices in journalism.
You say like lost in action, that means it's not known where he is at the very moment.
Yeah, it's mean when a person joined the army and he took some part in the operation and something happened. We don't know what actually happened, but there is no connection, no information about him. And actually, this is the guy that we work together on TV station. And another story, I have a friend. He also lost in the Kherson region. He joined the army at the beginning of invasion, and he lost after 1 year, something like that. So we don't know what happened, where they are. They can be captured by Russians, and they can be in prisons on their side. It's best scenario for it. And the worst things of like they can got some injury that is not impossible to live with it. I think it will be interesting to discover it, to follow these stories, but there are so many stories like this in Ukraine, and actually we don't know the numbers of people who lost in action.
Are you sometimes afraid of the day when you will know the numbers? The day when the numbers are going to be published, that someday it will be known. Are you afraid of this day?
I think it will happen not so quickly. So I think they will hide this information for a long time. So maybe after some years or 20 years or 15 years. I cannot say that it's scary. I can say that it's information that you never can accept. Because on the one hand, if you speak about numbers and you see some big numbers, but in this case, how you can say big or not so big when you speak about someone's life. I think in this case, any numbers will look like really sad, and it will be not impossible to accept for Ukraine as a nation for a long time. We have like big traditions of the funerals, of the day of the Ukrainian army, of the different days that we can speak about it, that we can organize some events or public actions, and there are many films, and it will be more films about it, and books and everything, and maybe it will help us in the future overcome this trauma, but it's a long process.
Shortly before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine started, you started working for the Ukrainian Institute. Could you briefly describe what that is, the Ukrainian Institute, for someone who has never heard of it?
So in the end of 2021, I already... So I'm stuck a bit in the moment that I don't know what to do, what is the next. So I work as a journalist around 10 years or a bit more. I tried to do something in documentary filmmaking, and actually I'm a bit tired of this active type of life. And I realized that I need something stable with the office regime, with colleagues, with the small parties on the kitchen, if there is some birthday or something like that. Yes, and I apply to the Ukrainian Institute, and then they invite me. And at the beginning, it looks like government institution, everything according to the rules. But you are dealing with the culture on the one hand, but on another hand, you need to work with the papers, with many official procedures. But then invasion happened, and our stable life completely changed. Everything that I tried to find, some stable place with nice colleagues, everything changed. And Ukrainian Institute, it's a institution that affiliated with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we promote Ukrainian culture abroad. And I will work in the film sector. And after invasion, we got so many letters, so many requests for Ukrainian films, for delegations, for explanations, what happened, what it's like the many companies, festivals, they ask us to send them some films that they can show, and to show to their audience, to screen and to show their audience Ukraine as a country more deeper. And we joined this process, and it was a very busy and active, I think, around 2 years of work, because we tried to do as much as possible. We tried to send Ukrainian filmmakers to every big film festivals, just to promote Ukraine, to speak about invasion, to screen their films. And we also help them to find the partners, to build the partnerships, and to find actually the money to produce the films, because inside the country it's mostly impossible to find any support if you want to produce the film. So this international networking system works. I can say that not so bad. We got good results. So I'm dealing with this already around 3 years, and we'll see what will be the next.
Do you still get many invitations and requests from abroad, like compared to the beginning of the full-scale invasion and today? Would you say that, like there is still like this high interest coming from abroad towards like the Ukrainian film?
A bit less than it was before at the beginning of invasion, but these contacts that we got from the beginning, from the first year, from 2022, we're still in the contact. We built really strong partnerships. We a bit changed our plans, so we're now focusing more about long-term projects, not just one visit to the film festival and that's all. Because in the film industry, in the world film industry, it's nothing when you just once participated in one edition. And now we're more focusing on the long-term projects, on the something that will impact Ukrainian film industry deeper, that can help filmmakers to find co-producers. And we also try to all the time find new focuses, how to speak about the war, what additionally we can explain, what focus, what themes or genre we can promote. It's interesting journey, and it's a really long process. You need to be good in the film industry. You need to understand it. You need to understand how the industry works in Ukraine and abroad, and you need to be very polite, and you need to be really try to understand other nations, not just to push them or that they must see Ukrainian films and support us. It doesn't help. You need to find the small links, small details, these ways to everyone to explain what is happening and why does it mean to their country, what does it mean to us, and what does it mean to everyone, actually.
I read about the Ukrainian Institute that it aims to form a positive image of Ukraine abroad. When traveling abroad, when speaking to people who are coming from abroad, who are coming outside from Ukraine, what are prejudices you met when talking to people? What are images of Ukraine that you heard from foreigners or were confronted by foreigners that you would like to change?
At the beginning, it was more questions, something like, how are you? How is life? And after, it's more questions about, if the war is still going on? And, yeah, something like that. If it's still attacks, if it's still, do you have salaries or do you have food? Sometimes I got these questions as well. It depends from the country and from the people. If it's just some random visitor of the festival, it's one thing. But if it's someone from the industry, they're more interested in the new projects, safety, how they can help, or what additionally they can provide to the Ukrainian filmmakers. Yeah, so it depends from the audience. If it's someone who have friends or who checking the news every day, or it's someone really like random person who just heard about Ukraine and say, okay, how is everything? Where is it? But actually, I never met some bad comments or bad questions. So they are more like support, or some of them wearing yellow and blue stripes or something like that, or flowers at the airport or at the shops, and they show it to you when they heard that you are from Ukraine.
How would you describe, from what you hear from filmmakers in Ukraine, how is it even possible during war times, to make any bigger film project? How is that working, and in how far is the industry totally changed by war?
It's not easy, but for them it's the things to survive, because when in difficult time you have something to do, when you have something that you need to finish, it's help you to survive and it's help you to continue your work. And of course, as I said, for some people it's also possibility to overcome their trauma. If you look at the war from the distance through the camera, it looks like not so scary. But if you are without camera, if you in these events, if you're just a person who randomly participate in these historical events, it's really scary. So I think the film production for some people, it's the way to distance, to find the distance between war and their mental state. According to production, money, safety, logistics, everything changed and it became difficult. And according to permissions, heroes, everything. But the main thing is that it helps filmmakers to continue to survive, and they found their mission in this, and it's really good because when the big historical events happens, it's always good that you have someone to film it for future, to film it to history, to universities, to another people in another countries, just to show it how it was. Without it, I cannot imagine that we can survive, and we cannot continue our fight on international level as well, because this is a part of the struggling to show what happened. And the film industry, documentaries, it's one of the, I cannot say the best thing, but one of the very, very useful thing. And I want to believe that maybe some very big decisions in EU was made after they watched something about Frontline, about Bucha, about attacks on the hospitals, on maternity in Mariupol. I want to believe that it helps to open eyes to someone and to show actually how it was in the reality.
That leads me to my final question for you. What does help you personally to get a certain distance between everything that is happening around you? What does help you to endure the life during these war times in Ukraine?
The same camera. Try to film everything that happened in Odessa just for my private archive for now. My cat. When you have someone or something to treat, to my home plants, they need water from me, like at summer mostly every day. And sport. I discovered that this is a good thing to protect your mental health. So these things really help me. And to be on the ground, it's always good to speak with the people. When you heard all these stories, you can find a big power in these stories. When you heard stories of soldiers, of your close friends, of just local people who still, selling the tomatoes on the market in the morning at 6 after night of drone attacks. It's really helps, because you feel that you're not alone. You feel that it's not just you feel this bad inside. It's connected to everyone. But if you see the person who continue to do something, it's inspired to continue as well.
Irina Kiprienko, thank you so much for being my guest today. I wish you to stay safe in Odessa, and of course to everyone you know, and of course to your cat as well. Thank you so much for taking time today. We're back with Yakti in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you. Stay safe. Bye.